Unfortunately, I was not able to get, in contact with the landowners to get an understanding of the project. I was able to do that. And I'd like to be able to just make sure that we give an opportunity to, to actually see the project as the board. So, yes, I will be asking to defer it for 30 days. That way I can get in contact and we can be able to put it back out to the public. It's okay. Thank you.
All right, any comments, questions?
There's no change, though. It's the same one as before.
That is correct.
Okay.
Actually, so this was approved by the Planning Commission already. And unfortunately, it was not seconded on this last meeting.
It was a positive recommendation.
It was positive. Yes, sir. Thank
And
you,
I
Commissioner.
believe it's passed on first reading already as well.
Yeah.
All right. All in favor of adding that item to the hill of the agenda, please signify by saying aye.
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 All right, that passes with all 4 elected officials on that. We'll read this item onto the record as our last item onto the agenda tonight.
Thank you.
All right, any other changes to the agenda? All right, seeing none, we'll leave the agenda as amended one time, as published, with the one additional item on that. Next item is our invocation and pledge of allegiance. I'd like to ask our fire chief, if he would, to come forward and lead us in the invocation and pledge.
Sir. Matthew 5:4 said, "Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted." Pray with me. Our Heavenly Father, we welcome you to these proceedings, and as we often do, ask for your guidance to work together respectfully and successfully for the good of your people here in the city. Tonight, though, through broken hearts and the pain of loss, we guide our prayers to you. For those who woke up this morning to the loneliness of bereavement, the empty bed, the empty chair, the unaccustomed quietness, the life now incomplete, may they know your divine presence in the stillness of the day through your peace and the love of friends who offer condolence. And in the darker moments, dear Lord, may they reach out to hold your hand and feel the warmth of the one who has already passed from death to life and now welcomes their loved ones into his kingdom. In Christ's name, amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Chief Luffman. Next item is approval of minutes. This is from our regular meeting, July 12th. I have a motion and a second. Any discussion changes? All right, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That passes 4-0. Next item is citizen comments. If you have a comment, this is your opportunity to come forward and make a comment. This is probably the only opportunity you'll have at the meeting to speak on these topics. Unlike the Planning Commission, we don't take comments on the individual items. So if you have a comment on any topic, this is your opportunity to come forward and make a comment. And you'll be need your name and address for the record, and you'll be recognized for 3 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Vince King. I live at 24 4th Avenue, across the street here from City Hall.
All right.
There's an issue that's come up in our neighborhood, and I don't think just our neighborhood. I think it is affecting the entire city, and that is Airbnb. We've had some outside investors come into our subdivision and buy a home, completely remodel the home, and pretty much are strictly advertising it as an Airbnb. Obviously, I don't know of anyone in our subdivision that is in favor of that. We don't know who's going to be over there. We don't know how many is going to be over there. We don't know how often they're going to be over there. We have children, grandchildren, everyone playing in our subdivision, and it's really, we consider it an invasion, quite frankly, in our residential subdivision. So I would like to ask the board and the city to take a look at this issue and look at it closely, because it's growing in Mount Juliet, and it's not going to go away. It's going to continue to get worse. And I did a little research, and I think for reference, if anyone would care to, if you'll look at section 78 in the city of Brentwood zoning, they have a section there and they addressed it, and it's working. And you cannot rent a house in a residential subdivision for less than 3 months. So it's on their books and apparently is legal. And I don't see why the city of Mount Juliet couldn't do the same thing. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir.
Nick Polk, 414 Silver Springs Lane, Mount Juliet. Just want to thank you guys again for your time and opportunity to speak in your service. I'm here to ask for your reconsideration regarding the support of proposed term limits. And the support that I'm expressing today is not in light of any critique aimed at the current or past Board of Commissioners. The support I'm expressing is for a standard that I believe should be applied to every level of government across the board in the U.S. We live in a gig economy, and these term limits reflect the economic norms of how just about every working class American pursues their careers and work. These term limits would provide plenty of time for officials to invest in our community and make financial sense for officials as well. And I was inspired by a couple of things that Vice Mayor Justice said at the last commissioners meeting. He said, anything that we can get out of the hands of government into the hands of the private sector is always a good idea. And he also said there has to be a limit to what we can do, referring to the city when it comes to providing money for programs in the city. And I agree with the Vice Mayor on both of these points. During the tornado and the pandemic, this commission has proven that it wants to support and reinvest into the community. It's also proven this through the way it navigates taxes and how those taxes are reinvested back into the community. And I want to thank you all for how you do that. And these term limits would be just another way to accomplish the values expressed by Vice Mayor Justice. Our tax dollars, the citizens' tax dollars, go to support the local government so that individuals may in turn reinvest in our community through local governments, complete their terms, and then return to the private sector to develop our community through the very work that they accomplish through the privilege of our taxes. In the long run, term limits are a win-win for everyone. They create accountability as well as new avenues for creativity within our community. They provide more opportunities for all citizens to pay attention and recognize that it takes a village and that we are all integral members of our village. They also make a further statement that not just a few matter, but that all of us matter in the thriving of the home that I call Mount Juliet. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Good evening, John Cody, 3080 Oxford Drive. I'll be very brief. We've been, on behalf of the HOA and Kelsey Glenn, we've been having some issues with our developer and the contractors leaving a lot of screws and nails and other things in the road. We've had countless numbers of tires blown in the neighborhood. I just want to express my thanks to both our commissioner and our elected body for stepping in and helping out with that. And especially to Kenny Martin and the staff here in the city for really stepping up and doing the best that they can. Try to keep our developer honest, keep the roads clean. That happens to be the area development right now. If you're not familiar, is on Oxford Drive, which exits out onto John Wright Road. And for many of the citizens of our HOA and our community, that's our main way to and from our school, right? Springdale Elementary, where many of the parents send their children. So I just, again, wanted to give my sincere thanks to all of our elected body, especially Commissioner Hefner and all the staff, especially Kenny Martin, for stepping up and taking care of that in the last couple of weeks. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Kelly Polk, 414 Silver Springs Lane. So I appreciate you guys having us out here. I really wanted, to express my disappointment in the commission not passing the term limits proposed by Commissioner Hefner. When I look at the U.S. Congress and members such as Nancy Pelosi and many others, it's very clear to me how a lack of term limits can be detrimental. And I would really hate for the city of Mount Juliet to reflect the U.S. Congress in that way. I believe that term limits allow those elected to focus on what is beneficial and helpful for the city rather than what is beneficial and helpful for their reelection. Vice Mayor Justice, you spoke a lot last meeting about the importance of small government, and I couldn't agree more. And I fully believe that term limits are one simple and bipartisan way to be sure that we can keep our government small. And I trust that should the issue of term limits be reintroduced, that the commission will do the right thing and vote in favor of it. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Good evening. My name is Skip Nipper. My wife Sheila and I live at 23 4th Avenue. My brother and I own property at 2396, and I own a business at that address. Today I've traded some emails with some government officials. Thank you. The response has been just terrific. I'm not asking for a resolution immediately, but that's not why I'm here. I'm really here to give a testimony. 10 years ago, my wife and I lived off of Lebanon Road. We owed 5 payments on our mortgage. And the good Lord picked us up and put us at 23 4th Avenue. And as I wrote to Mr. Martin and others today, for 3 reasons. One, so we could join to Providence Methodist Church with Jacob Armstrong. It's been a real blessing in our life. Number 2 is because we moved into a neighborhood that we love. And number 3 escapes me, but there is a third one, and I'll come back to it hopefully in a minute. We are so blessed by being in this kind of a city, and the work that you all do with managed growth. It's just a real pride for us to be able to say that we're from Mount Juliet, Tennessee, and people know where Mount Juliet, Tennessee is today. So I just want to say thank you. We're here because we love it. I would like to reiterate what Vince said. He's a neighbor, because that's of concern too. But I don't want to pile on Mr. Martin and others about some of the things that I addressed with him today. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Seeing none, we'll close citizen comments. We'll move on to commissioner comments and reports. Vice Mayor Justice.
No report.
All right, thank you, sir. Commissioner Trevette.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you guys for coming out tonight. I appreciate seeing some of the Mount Julians. First of all, I'd like to give a shout out to the Mount Juliet Police for now being, not only do they protect our streets, they also deliver food to some of our residents to make sure the ice cream does not melt. So great job, Mount Juliet Police Department. Great job. The fire department needs to step up their game for next week. All right. Oh, washing cars. There we go. I like it. I like it. You know, over the past week and a half, I've gotten a lot of phone calls from a lot of our residents in and out of my district. I'll tell you, it is such a blessing. I like to mirror this last residence of ours. Yes, it is a blessing, you know, to kind of know that we live in a great community and that we can be able to help out each other as neighbors. So, you know, with that, it's just, you know, for me, I've got a small check off list that I've got to accomplish this week. Obviously working with some of our city officials. So looking forward to getting that back to those residents. I would like to remind everyone, obviously, during our last meeting, me and the vice mayor, we were discussing about the reschedule of the Youth Appreciation Day. That's actually on July 31st. It starts at 11 a.m. And then also would like to just remind everyone, August 6th at 8 p.m. is movie night there at the park. So bring a blanket. You know, the parks team is actually doing a great job with movie night. It looks like we're having a good time. One last thing I failed to bring up, and I appreciate the family members and the residents that brought up about the term limits. I really wanted to go ahead and just put this on the record that I wanted to go ahead and second that motion so it didn't die. But however, I really wanted to make sure before we put that out there to let the citizens make that decision. I wanted to have a plan and I wanted to work with this board. And that's something that I've always committed to, even though that this is a short term for me as, roughly 19, 20 months. Before I, decide to go ahead and run for office for a full term. I do believe in terms, but what are they? And I think, big government is a problem out there. However, as I promised with all these, commissioners and the mayor, as I put my name out there for, to put my name in the running, that I promised that no matter what I did, however I vote, I would make sure that I would get all of the information and make an intelligent decision. And I think that's what we all should be doing, is getting the full information before we make that decision and that vote. So I am looking forward to it coming back up to the table next year, but I'd like to make sure that we have a plan in place and discuss what those terms could be and how they need to be pushed out, if that's something that could be passed. So with that, that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Hefner.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to take this time to talk about term limits because I didn't have an opportunity to do so at the last BOC meeting because it failed to draw a second. When I interviewed him as a potential nominee for this board, gave me his word and enthusiastically supported term limits. I was expecting for him to deliver on that, and it didn't happen. Let's talk about what I was asking at the last board meeting. I wasn't asking for this board to decide on term limits. I was asking for this board to allow the citizens of this city to decide on term limits. That's a totally separate question and a totally separate ask. So these board members up here, with me being the only exception, sent a clear message to the citizens of this community that they did not want to hear from them on term limits. And there's nothing to discuss. It was pretty simple. 2 consecutive 4-year terms. There's not much more detail there. But that was not the question. The question was not whether I'm for term limits or you're not against, or you're against term limits. Again, the question was, should the citizens of this community have a right to vote on term limits for the elected officials? That's what it was about, not what the opinions are of this board. So I just want to make that clear. The other thing we need to fix is the fact that we up here are elected by most votes, not majority of votes. We have a commissioner sitting at this desk that had 58% vote against her in the last election because of split votes. When you have one or more opponents that run against an incumbent, the advantage goes to the incumbent and they split the vote. And it happened this year, this past election year. So major disadvantage for anyone that's seeking to run for office. This will come up again, I promise you. As long as I'm sitting at this chair every year, every opportunity that I have a chance to do so, I will push for a referendum to go on the ballot to allow the citizens to vote on term limits. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Mullally.
Well, since you mentioned her, obviously you're talking about me, and it doesn't matter how many was in the race. What matters is, bottom line, I won by 209 votes. That's what matters. It was sad to hear of the passing of Tommy Crockett, the general manager of Two Rivers Ford, and then also now Harold Sutton, which is another big name in our community. So the family and loved ones and Mr. Crockett's dealership is in my prayers. In the morning, my husband, Pete, is having surgery. I would appreciate your prayers. He has a bone spur on his sinus cavity that's right next to his brain. So he has to go to Vanderbilt and get that done. So any prayers you would lift him up, I'd appreciate that. My newsletter will be going out probably next Monday. We'll be waiting on 2 reports over the weekend and Monday morning. If you're not already subscribed to my newsletters, I put them out every month, and also important updates and notices, jennifermullally.com. All you have to do is sign up your name and email, and you'll be entered into the database. BPAC, Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee, we have a dinner walk the first Monday of each month. That's next Monday. We meet here at City Hall at 6 o'clock. It hasn't been determined where, but we could go to really anywhere. So if you want to come, just come out here at City Hall at 6 o'clock next Monday, and we'll decide where to go. Also, BPAC every Monday night through the warm season is they ride bicycles. They meet down at Charlie Daniels Park at 6 o'clock, and they leave at 6:30. So if you're really like riding bicycles, there's several that come every week, probably 10 or 15. They ride 15 to 20 miles. So come out for that if you're interested in that. Providence Central groundbreaking was 2 weeks ago. And so I'm excited about that. The road they're working on now is they will extend Providence Parkway all the way to Central Pike, and that should be completed by Christmas. So that's going to help. That's going to be a big thing there. Speaking of Providence Central, there is one item on the agenda tonight, which is an ordinance amendment 10.2 about an open burn ban sponsored by Vice Mayor Justice, which appears, we found out today, is possibly illegal. It should be noticed that there's only one reason that it's on the agenda tonight, and that is because he has a buddy who lives in the county behind Providence Central. We just had the groundbreaking 2 weeks ago, and they've started burning. This buddy of his has been opposed to the Providence Central development since day one, and he has vowed for over a year that he would do everything in his power to cause problems with it. Vice Mayor is the mouthpiece for it, so he decides to use his power on this board to bring forth a piece of legislation pulling strings for his buddy. Thankfully, and I hope it does turn out, that it is illegal. Not only is he wanting to stop burning on new developments, which Providence Central is the target. It also means, if I understand that Gino correctly, that it also would ban burning from homeowners. My husband got a permit to burn some limbs today in the backyard. And if I'm understanding Gino correctly, you cannot, I do not think, this is a quote, I do not think we can discriminate between developers versus homeowners on burning prohibitions without a valid reason for discrimination between the two. So that tells me it's just citywide. The funny thing about that is his buddy lives in the county, and this burn ban wouldn't even affect him. And it would have to be, he would be, in other words, he burns on his property. He would be able to continue burning because it wouldn't even touch him. So how ironic is that? If the vice mayor truly had a problem with burning inside the city, he would have said something at this very table last summer when it was up for a vote. He mentioned nothing about burning, so he evidently didn't have a problem with it then. As a matter of fact, burning was not even discussed. Personally, I don't like burning or blasting, but it's a part of developing that comes with growth. But using your power to pull strings for your buddies up here is just not right. We can also talk about Wintry Pines, which is in his backyard, that was recently approved several weeks ago. Nothing was discussed about burning then, except a conversation he and I had on the phone, because I was concerned about the burning and the blasting. He was not. And then, as far as I know, there's not one development in this city that was not allowed to burn from the beginning. Do you have a question you would like to ask me publicly, Vice Mayor?
Let's stay to the agenda.
No, I'm just hoping you just shut up and move on.
Okay, I'll move on.
Please do.
Vice Mayor sends an email to city staff, city council, as well as everyone sitting up here on this board, except me. I was intentionally excluded. In the email, Vice Mayor stated that I had stopped 3 different subdivisions from burning by having the fire chief shut them down. For clarification, I remind the Vice Mayor that in a previous BOC meeting several weeks ago, that he himself made it clear that I nor anyone sitting on this board had the authority to issue a stop work order on our own. There's a process that must be followed. The subdivisions he is referring to, which actually is 2, not 3, was over the course of several months after repeated warnings, one of which was over a year. The burning from these 2 developments was completely surrounded by homes that were constantly being showered with white ash and a black tarry substance in their pools, on their vehicles, their patio furniture, even on their tomatoes. I did follow the process over the course of months and months with Chief Luffman, Deputy Chief Edwards, as well as City Manager. 2 times a stop work order was issued to see if they were burning tires and fuel. Both of those were lifted after inspection. A 3rd stop work order was finally issued because it had gotten so bad, which meant that the one development had to chip and haul what remained on the tail end of their contract. Yes, I made the calls, but I also had support each time over the course of several months and repeated warnings. Also in this same email, he accused me of taking money from one of the landowners of Providence Central to allow burning, which
Commissioner,
oddly enough, burning was already allowed. 2 years
you're
ago,
approaching your 5 minutes.
2 years ago, before I put my name in for this seat, I was a constituent, and like most of the public, I made a statement suggesting the former commissioner had a money trail tied to a proposed development behind Belinda City. The difference in the two, I wasn't a leader of this city and didn't know any better. It's a natural assumption on the part of the public to believe that elected officials take money. I know some think that about me, and I don't blame them because they don't know any better and they buy into social media gossip. But you, Vice Mayor, are an elected official, a leader of this city, and for you to do it is not only inexcusable, but gutless. I thought you were more of a person in your face kind of a guy. Accusing me of
Commissioner,
taking money.
Exciting
I'm
as
gonna,
this is, you're exceeding your 5 minutes.
okay,
Please wrap it up.
just one more minute. Accusing me of taking money from anyone is a low blow. And I know you didn't bother taking the time to look up my financial disclosure statements, which are open to the public, and they're right here. Because if you did, you would have clearly seen that I have taken no money from anyone other than constituents in my family, not a developer, a landowner, engineer, contractor, realtor, or anyone else, not 1 cent. Since you didn't do that, you clearly are accused me of taking money under the table. I'm not here, one more paragraph. I'm not here because I need this seat or the little bit of money it pays. If I don't need the money, then I sure don't need money from anyone associated with the development. Rather, I'm here because I have a passion to serve and to help people, to educate, inform, and engage the public, to make important decisions about the future of this city without bias or personal agenda. That's my duty and what I pledged to do by taking an oath. Vice Mayor, you truly should be ashamed, and I'm extremely disappointed in you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner. All right. Next item is my comments, and they won't be nearly as exciting. Well, I'd like to start off and say, our thoughts are with the families of Tommy Crockett and Mr. Harold Sutton, and they will definitely be missed in this city, and we just keep those families in our thoughts and our prayers, and they've meant a lot to the city, both of them. The other thing, I didn't plan on speaking on this, but when someone starts talking about giving the people a vote on stuff, when they start talking about giving people a vote on an item as opposed to it, what they're failing to tell you is that the only way that these things can be changed. It's not a choice of whether we vote on it or the people vote on it. That's the only option that we have for changing our charter, being a home rule city. I don't think they're being disingenuous to you. I just think it's probably a little lack of experience. But with that, I'll recognize our city manager.
Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Board of Commissioners, and thanks for everybody that's showed up tonight. And for those watching at home, I've taken some notes for some of the comments, and I want to thank those for the positive comments. Thank you for those compliments, and not for me individually. I want to thank staff and our complete team of staff members here for their as we've used the term here recently, proactiveness. We wanted to up our game even bigger this year, as we try to do that every year, with being more responsive, more reactive. We understand the amount of stress that our citizens are dealing with in these trying times in our society, and we want to do everything to create a quality of life for you guys second to none. So we're listening. I heard Mr. King talk about the Airbnb. I know we've had some research on that in the past. We'll do more. I'll get with our city planner tomorrow, and also Mr. Gino, to see if we can maybe something creative some other cities have done, making sure, of course, that they're legal. We have to be neutral on those types of things, as you can imagine, but I'll make sure that we look into that. And I'd also like to send out my condolences to Mr. Harold Sutton, for which I had the pleasure of working with and knowing for 32 years. Not a finer man. A lot of times I used to refer to him as the godfather of development, because he had been involved in it for so long. And I want to thank him for all of his work and his family's work. And I know he'd endured a lot of trials and tribulations in his life, but it's a life well lived, and well done to my dear friend, Mr. Harold. And also the same for Mr. Tommy Crockett, who resided in Lebanon, to he and his family as well. Good man. He'd worked for Two Rivers Ford for better than 30 years. And I know that he lived and breathed customer service and serving others, and all the things he did in this community. I want to thank him. And of course, we'll continue to pray for them and their families. And I know it's difficult to talk about positive things, but we live in a very blessed community, and we lost basically two wonderful citizens. And that's the important reason for growth is, a lot of these people wouldn't be here. Two Rivers Ford wouldn't have been of our community unless we'd had the growth at some time and another, and the support to bring these businesses to our community. So I just want to thank our entire community, which is every citizen, every employee in our elected body, because we do live in a blessed place. And sometimes we have spirited debates, and I call those compassionate debates, simply because we care. Mr. and Ms. Nipper, I see you out here, and I know you ran a business in our community for years, still do. And they also leased to another very successful business. So we're blessed because of the blessings you provide for us, and our staff knows that, and they stand ready to serve. And that concludes my report, Mayor.
Thank you, sir. All right, next item is our unfinished business consent agenda items. I'll read those into the record. Item number 8.1, an ordinance to annex into the city's corporate boundaries of the city of Mount Juliet approximately 2.4 acres, property known as the Hutchinson property, and being found and located at 2774 Old Lebanon Dirt Road, map 73, parcel 68, and being located in one of the city's urban growth boundary. The next item is an ordinance to annex into the corporate boundaries of the city of Mount Juliet approximately 4.9 acres, and being found at 2814 Old Lebanon Dirt Road, map 73, parcel 67, and being located within the city's urban growth boundary. Third item is an ordinance to annex into the corporate boundaries of the city of Mount Juliet, approximately 1.86 acres, property known as the Argo property, and being found at 2754 Old Lebanon Dirt Road, map 73, parcel 68.01, and being located within the city's urban growth boundary. And the other item on the consent agenda is 8.1, an ordinance to rezone from commercial retail center CRC to commercial retail center planned unit development CRC PUD, and adopt the preliminary master development plan for Golden Bear commercial, being located at 10,000 Lebanon Road, map 54, parcel 97, in the city of Mount Juliet, Tennessee, Wilson County. We have these 4 items, and I'll make a motion. And these are on the item. I'm gonna ask that we separate, if there's no objection, if we consider 8.1, the 10,000 Lebanon Road separately from the consent. Is there any objection to voting on that one separately? All right. Then the first 3 then, without objection, then we'll vote on the first 3. Is there any discussion or comments on those? All right, seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All right. Any opposed? Seeing none, that passes unanimously. And then we'll consider the 4th item separately, an ordinance to rezone commercial retail CRC to commercial retail center planned unit development CRC PUD, and adopt the preliminary master development plan for Golden Bear commercial, being located at 10,000 Lebanon Road, map 54, parcel 97, in the city of Mount Juliet, Tennessee, and Wilson County. And I'll make a motion for that. Is there a second? Second. All right. And with it on the floor, we have a request from the applicant for a deferral. And I'll make a motion too that we defer this item 1 meeting. Second. And got a second on that. Any discussion on the deferral? Seeing none, all in favor of deferral for 1 minute or for one meeting, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, that is deferred. Best that we don't defer for just a single minute. Next item on the agenda is new business consent items, and we have 3 of those, and I'll read those into the record. This is a resolution adopting a plan of services for the property known as the Hutchins property located at 2774 Old Lebanon Dirt Road, map 73, parcel 68 in Wilson County, Tennessee, being located within the city's urban growth boundary. The second one is a resolution adopting the plan of services for the property located at 2754 Old Lebanon Dirt Road, map 73, parcel 68.01 in Wilson County, Tennessee, being located within the city's urban growth boundary. The third item is a resolution adopting a plan of services for the property located at 2814 Old Lebanon Dirt Road, map 73, parcel 67 in Wilson County, Tennessee, located in the city's urban growth boundary. I'll make a motion.
Second.
I have a second. Any discussion on these 3 items? All right.
Motion to defer, actually,
You want to defer the plan of services on these 3?
until we can actually hear all of
I'm sorry, I didn't have.
We got to, never mind, go ahead, Mayor.
Were you having a motion, or are you holding it?
No, I'm just going, never mind.
Okay.
I'll take it.
Or any other discussion? All right, all in favor of these 3 items, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? These 3 items pass unanimously. We are into new business. This is 10-1, an ordinance of the City of Mount Juliet to amend the Mount Juliet City Code 1622 anti-noise regulations to add subsection A and B to extend the hours to 11 p.m. on Friday evenings, Saturday evenings, and evenings preceding a federal holiday on the federal and preceding the federal holiday and on the federal holiday. Is there a motion? Have a motion?
Second.
And we have a second. The item is on the table for discussion. Vice Mayor, you're the sponsor. Would you like to speak first?
Yes, I would. This is actually part of the entertainment ordinance or a permit that we went through. And it was suggested that we do move these hours up to 11 p.m. just on Friday and Saturday nights. I think Gino had made the comment, Mr. Marchetti, our city attorney, had made the comment at that point that would have to go citywide as opposed to any individuals or any individual permitting, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct.
And so that's the reason we had to put it on in this form.
Commissioner Mullally?
If this was for establishments holding entertainment, why is that marked out?
Is that for the city attorney?
It's any establishment. We took it out of the entertainment, so it's not just related to entertainment.
So it's citywide. Okay. Would this also apply to fireworks?
This has nothing to do with fireworks.
Okay. What could this mean other than, say, music?
That's it.
So it only applies to music?
Musical instruments, TVs, and amplifying machines.
So none of that changes. Whatever is in the ordinance is the same. The definitions are the same. None of that is changing, correct?
All it did was change from 10
To 11.
to 11. And those on Friday, Saturdays, and night preceding a federal holiday.
Commissioner Heffer?
It does extend the distance. Correct.
Yes, 300
That's
feet.
an important fact to make. So it's currently 50 feet.
Correct.
So we're extending it out 300 feet, and that's to the front door, the residential front door.
Front door of the resident. Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
From the source.
From the source.
And the decimal stays the same, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
A question for the city manager. How is the current ordinance actively being enforced?
It's usually complaint-based, Mayor, meaning if someone, of course, if the police are out and they're patrolling at night and they hear music, they'll address it proactively, but normally it's complaint-based, and it's been based on 10 o'clock, between 10 o'clock at night and 5 in the morning, I guess it is? 7, I'm sorry, 7. I was thinking 7. So hope that makes sense.
And that's going to continue on complaint-based enforcement.
Yes, sir. And there's, and typically, I know that many years ago, we had a little teen club that was on Highway 70. It was made out of real thin metal, and it backed up some residents, and they used to go a lot longer than, of course, 10 or 11. That created an issue years ago, and that was just because of its proximity. That's how we typically did it then, is how we do it now. But of course, back then with a metal building right on 11 Road that backed up to residential, it didn't take long for those complaints to come in. But we also knew to proactively police that because it was a hot spot.
Mr. Mullally?
Based on the citizen comments that sometimes the bands go in the restaurant up to midnight, I'm just curious if this gets extended to 11, is that going to be, to 1? I mean, if it's not being enforced now, where is that? Where is the line there? I think that's a good question.
Yeah,
City manager wants to be recognized.
Commissioner, that is an excellent question. And the fact that the ordinance has been, if it passes tonight, just refreshed, what we'll do is just refresh enforcement efforts, that if the city's willing to give the extra hour, I say that it does vote to give that extra hour, is the police department knows the hot spots. So if it's not complaint based, they can proactively patrol the area to make sure that there is compliance. That's what we've been doing recently, is trying to send somebody through the area to make sure, Captain Chandler's been sort of heading up that charge to make sure they're just not out there blatantly violating the ordinance. So if anything, it'll actually bring more attention to the ordinance for enforcement efforts and to be more proactive.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Hefner?
Just clarification, is this governed by or part of the nuisance laws? Could this also play
Yes, sir.
into, so if we
Yes,
get
sir.
a number
And
of
that's-
complaints,
Yes,
then
sir.
it could be, a nuisance complaint could be filed?
Mhm. And in my many years here, it's been peaks and valleys over the years that we'd get complaints, and sometimes there wouldn't be any. But we've always tried to enforce it based on complaints. Apparently, if it wouldn't bother anybody, we didn't go. But in this particular case, if we're extending it by an hour and we know it's that not everybody necessarily agrees with it, the police department will be requested to make sure, not to be picking on anyone or singling anybody out, but if you've got certain venues that are known for music, is to make sure that they're compliant. And we usually have a pretty good working relationship with those types of venues that want to be compliant, as to not only disappoint us, but to avoid enforcement or sanctions. I hope that makes sense. So we will promise to stay after it and work with the police department to make sure that there's compliance.
Anything else? City manager, if someone has a complaint, should they call? They shouldn't call 911. What do they call an emergency number?
Non-emergency number 615-754-2550, and report it to the police dispatch, and they'll immediately dispatch a car to go out and check out the complaint.
Okay. All right. Any other questions, discussions before we vote? Yeah, Commissioner Tourette.
This is for the city manager. So if the residents should have an issue and they call, would you want the officers to report to the home to validate that they can hear it from that property, and then they would go investigate it from there?
Yes, sir. That is part of the process. Of course, in this particular case, say, for example, if the ordinance says 11 o'clock and there's a shut off, that would be easy because you would just simply say you're past the time on the city. But yes, they would work both sides up from the complainant's location. They would usually go there first.
And do we have any type of study that shows what kind of numbers that we're currently getting?
As far as complaint calls,
Yeah.
Captain, can you speak to that?
Thank you, sir.
And they may also have a decibel meter that they utilize as well.
All right, appreciate it. So our numbers have been low on these requests for noise ordinance violations. We've been monitoring the marina, but it seems as if the complaints weren't making it into the police department. They were maybe emailed to City Hall, and then we would monitor it after the fact, including we had about 2 or 3 months. We would go out every Friday and Saturday just to listen, just to be sure they're in compliance with the current ordinance, and they were. There were also times when we went out, but the band wasn't playing, but it was maybe a loud party on a boat out on the water or out in the marina itself. playing loud music. So there's different sources that we think residents were hearing these noises from. And as long as we get the call, an officer will be dispatched. And typically we locate the source and then we'll go out to the complainant to be sure they can still hear the source.
And if it's out on the lake, for example, is there anything that the officers can do, or does it have to be in a business establishment only?
Sure, it would definitely have to be something that we could walk out and deal with.
Sure.
Now, the Corps of Engineers have their own set of rules, but we cannot enforce those sets of rules. So a boat out on the water would be enforced by the Corps.
Okay, thank you.
Captain, I'll say I'd gotten a letter from a resident. I know I sent that on to the city manager, and I know you have done several proactive checks on that over the
Right.
weeks, and I thank you for your efforts on that.
Sure.
No doubt noise is coming from somewhere, but it's like you said, sometimes it was a boat. And anyway, but just thank you for following up on that and your diligence as well in following up
Sure.
on that.
And really the simple thing of it is if we get a call into our dispatch, it'll definitely be dispatched and our officers are going to investigate as best they can. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, can I add one more thing?
Yes, sir.
It's important to note as well that, for example, just anywhere in Mount Juliet, as we always have, if someone's having a loud party or just running, we actually had one situation years ago where we had somebody that was agitating a neighbor and they would actually mow their grass at dark and leaf blow and literally stand in their driveway with a leaf blower, gas powered leaf blower that is, and just rev it. So that would be the nuisance ordinance. So if you have that even in a neighborhood, regardless if it's an entertainment area or not, or a venue, we're still going to come out and investigate that as well. But literally, I think the captain and leaders of the police department will recall that it had gotten to that level. It's pretty bad, so much that we were getting video submitted of it.
Commissioner Mullally.
Okay, since you brought that up, in a subdivision, say if somebody has a party and they invite a band or even just play, would that apply to if it's residential?
Even if it's before the so-called 10 or 11 o'clock, if it's excessive or a nuisance, the police department would come out and investigate that as well and make a determination from that. And most time they can work with the neighbors and the folks to maybe tone it down just a little bit so that people can still have a good time. A lot of times it may just be a PA announcer that's there for, the parent has ordered all these jumpy houses, they've got a PA person out there talking, and usually works out pretty well. But yes, that would apply to residential as well in a situation like that.
Okay. And last summer during COVID, Providence United Methodist Church would play music outside. And so I called Pastor Jacob to ask his opinion about this and if they would have any plans of holding any more outdoor music, and would they, if this got passed, would they extend it past to 11 o'clock? And he said, no, that would not be an issue. So anyway, just wanted you to know that.
All right. Any other comments or discussions? I'll say I'm going to support this on first reading. I'm definitely interested in hearing from folks if you've got some concerns on it. But with that, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
No, I'm going to listen to
Mayor?
Yes, sir.
I apologize. The marina came up and was talked about. I want to clarify something. The Captain Chandler was talking about the marina. They're actually governed by the Corps of Engineers rules. There is a law. Theirs is 10 o'clock by Corps. So it'd be the Corps' responsibility if they had a problem to shut them down at 10 o'clock, not the city of Mount Juliet. So that doesn't change anything there.
Okay. Thank you. But my record, that passes by a vote of 4-1. All right. Next item on the agenda is 10.2, an ordinance of the city of Mount Juliet to amend the Mount Juliet City Section 14.8, open burning exceptions 0, open burning during the development of a property. Is there a motion?
Mayor, I'm going to make the motion just to get this on, and then we'll probably I'll ask for a deferral on it.
Right. I'll second it then. It's on the table. I'll just like start off to saying that's probably not section 0, but probably section O. But
Yeah. there's been considerable emails going back and forth, and there's a question that we're going to have to get an answer for as to whether or not the city of Mountain Juliet has been issued a certificate from TDEC. And our fire chief, I think, do we have an answer to that question, whether TDEC has given us that certificate of authority?
Hasn't received such.
Okay. So absent that certificate, when my understanding, and maybe you can clarify this, all right, but my understanding is that when we start the burning process, and it's got to be the air curtain, all the rest of that stuff, the permits that are pulled, are they pulled from here, from City Hall?
Yes, there are permits that are issued by the codes department downstairs.
Okay. So what are the compliance factors that have to be taken into consideration before that permit is issued?
Well, we have a, excuse me, we have a procedure that they follow by the size of the pit that they use, the positioning of the berm, and the air curtain destructor. I mean, all of that is in our city rules and regulations on commercial open burn.
I will say that the problem with the burning is not happening during the day while the air curtain is in place. The problem happens after they are through for the day. They shut down the curtain, and then smoke leaves and starts going. We've got apartments over there. I've had a couple of people that I've talked to that had a problem with that. I've got a friend of mine that does live over there that by the way, just because he lives in the county does not mean he does not have an opinion, or, smoke does come over to his house. So we only protect evidently the people that live in the city of Mount Juliet. So the others don't matter according to some folks up here. But we do need to know whether or not that TDEC permit or certificate has been issued to the city. I guess that's the big question we got at this point.
That's my understanding.
I asked for the legal counsel. Have they issued anything?
Well, he's the one asking the question also.
Okay.
So
No, I didn't know if they had asked.
I don't think we've got an
Question,
answer.
I know anything.
Yeah. Because I do know that there were 2, 3 debatable at this point subdivisions that we have shut down the burning. Over the years, we've done that as well. And now with 40,000 people, we've gotten so dense that when you burn and didn't see the limits, you're going to affect somebody adversely. I also talked to the companies that were doing this and found out that their bids were actually bid for chipping. And if the city allowed them to, that they would burn it, and it would actually increase their profit. So when I found that out, and by the way, I think the profit was about $2,000 per acre is what they're making on it. Not a big deal to them. But we do need to know the answer to this question, I guess, before we pass this, or before we even talk about this any further. So for that purpose.
I'll make plenty of calls in the morning, try to get you some results.
Well, I'd like to, if we could, I'm sorry.
One question for you.
Yes.
Were those burns that were shut down, was that a temporary shutdown or permanent shutdown?
It was a temporary shutdown. What happened if burning, I don't want to say is an art form, but there's a way of utilizing the air curtain destructor properly. And if you go at a regulated pace, then the air curtain destructor is effective in keeping basically all you'll see out of the pit is a heat signature. Of course, during that time, developers are in a hurry because the only people making money during that time are the folks that are burning and the folks that are leasing the air curtain destructor. So they put a little rush to it, and that's where we end up with one problem. Another problem is, like we talked about, proximity. Is you get into the back end of a development that butts up against another development, and you're cooking these limbs and tree trunks off in someone's, basically their backyard. And so that's at that point in time, it just gets to where you can't do that. There's just no way around doing that without affecting their back decks, their cars, their swimming pools, their gardens, their children, and then you add to this folks that may have breathing difficulties. It's bad enough that we're getting what we're getting from the West Coast, and then you add something, in close proximity, it just gets that much worse. So in those cases, then we have to suggest that the site prep person cease that and go into another form, a plan B, if you will, of chipping and removing that way.
And
Yes, sir.
go ahead. When you and I talked about this
Mhm.
early on, one of the conversations that we had nothing to do with anybody. It was just a matter of, is this going to be a problem? Is it going to cause a problem in your life? And you said, no, this actually solves a lot of problems in my life to take some stress off of me. Is that still correct?
It, well, it helps our citizens. I mean, they do. I mean, it does. It puts us in an auspicious position of, slowing down progress and doing that, plus serving. It parallels with blasting. A lot of folks that have trouble with that, they fail to realize that the blast that they're upset with now was blasting we were dealing with when their house was, before their house was there. So it puts us in a bit of a balance between, serving the citizens and continuing progress for the city success.
I think during that conversation, there was no mention of anybody in particular, but what I'm damn saying that I know of, the 5th or 6th complaint from various parts of the city, 2 that she talked about, 1 that I'm talking about, and then there have been numerous over on the north side that I've had to deal with as well.
Well,
So this doesn't just affect any one individual, it affects the entire city. I try to take that into effect when I'm making decisions.
Well, I haven't received any complaints on the current burn, but if there are complaints, and please get those to me as soon as possible, and I'll get over there and talk with the agency that's working that site prep job.
Out of curiosity, the fact that an individual complains and he does not live inside the city, does that make it no non-complaint?
Not to my office, no.
So it's
No,
just
I mean,
as
we
important.
work on being good neighbors. I mean,
Sure.
obviously, we take care of the folks that live in the city, and then the folks that are there, that are in our urban growth boundary or in and about our way. We definitely want to make sure that we're, good neighbors and good stewards. I mean, we certainly wouldn't hang up or, ignore a complaint.
Okay. Again, Mayor, unless somebody else has got some comments about it, I'd just like to make a motion at this point to defer
All right, I'll second.
until we can find out about the TDEC certification letters that we obviously need.
One meeting, 30 days? What are you thinking?
It shouldn't take more than one meeting.
All right.
If we've got those certifications in place, we can do what we need to do at that point.
So we have a motion to defer on the table. Anybody, any discussion on the advisement of deferral? All right, all in favor of deferring one meeting signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Deferral passes 4-1. Our next item on the agenda is an ordinance of the City of Mount Juliet to amend and redact the Mount Juliet City Code, Section 24176, fees, Parks and Recreations Department, to allow changes to the fee schedule to be set by the Parks and Greenway Board and approved by the Board of Commissioners and posted on the website at the Mount Juliet Community Center, and to approve and to redact all fee schedules as they are updated by each department. All right, and our city manager is our sponsor on this one. Yes. Yeah, we'll do that first.
Yeah. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Commission. This is a unique situation. The gym in particular at Charlie Park is more of a closed facility, unlike the park itself is open to anybody that wants to come. There's no ID check-in or anything like that for people that patronize our park system. But our gymnasium, because it is small in stature, it gets quite a lot of use and abuse, I guess you'd say. Well, we've had a few disturbing incidents over the years, sometimes involving basketball in particular, not to pick on that sport, but one reason it gets a little heated sometimes in our gymnasium, so much so that recent event that happened that the police department is very aware of that. I won't go into specific detail, but I can tell you it's very disturbing and very alarming for not only our elected body and citizens. That gym was built and paid for by the citizens of Mount Juliet. So what we're basically wanting to do is create a membership
process that's done in a lot of other cities that we did some research for that particular gymnasium as well for Wilson County residents only. We have a lot of folks coming from outside of Wilson County that were patronizing the gym and putting our citizens secondary, and also some, as I said, disturbing situations that came up that I felt like weren't in the best interest of our citizens. So I'm respectfully requesting that we go with a membership only just for the gymnasium. Everything else would remain the same. And I know I sort of talked around that a little bit, and I'm trying to be, protective of our community, but I think some of you have seen what I'm speaking of, and very disappointing and something that concerns me deeply.
Commissioner Trett.
First of all, thank you to the Parks Board for pulling us all together, and thank you, City Manager, for obviously sponsoring this. I'm in big supportive of this. I've actually sat in on a couple of those meetings. It is disappointing, that our city has opened up such a great venue for everyone, and then of course we've had some folks that just unfortunately took advantage of the situation. So I just want to make sure that it was on record that I'm in supportive of this, and that unfortunately, there has to be some type of, cost there in order to manage this, but it is minimized. The board did take many days into consideration to make this as affordable as possible, but also make sure that we did keep out the riffraff. So thank you to the board for that.
All right. Just to make sure, and were you asking about a second?
No, I got that.
Okay. All right. I thought just verifying. But my understanding, this ordinance is about changing the code so that the Parks Board is responsible for setting the fees, and it's approved by us, and we're removing it from code. Everybody on the same page, or?
That is correct.
Okay. Commissioner
Yes.
Millay?
What you just said, we're only voting on to only have the fees on the website as opposed to code, because it costs the city money every time the code's changed, right?
Mhm.
Okay, so that's where the
Yes.
vote is up here.
Yeah.
Okay,
I just want to explain what prompted
okay.
some of that.
Regardless, I think it's a good move. But
Yeah, thank you.
anyone else, any comments? All right, all in favors? Oh, sorry.
Just clarification, now we're restricting to Wilson County?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so when
Yes,
they get their membership card, we're going to verify that.
Yes, sir.
Um,
They'll
only
have a
got
little
one-
scanning process at the front door. So like if you go into private gyms or the YMCA or something like that, you just scan your card and they can tell to time, date, stamp who's been where, when.
I guess my only question is, or not concern or issue, but I mean, you're going to have guests, out-of-town guests that are coming in to visit Wilson County residents. Are they going to be excluded from going to the? Sure.
Yeah, we're trying, what we're asking for, just flexibility here to try to, like city manager said, to get some of the riffraff out. Every day, just about you can go inside our gym right now and there'll be 50 to 70 people inside. And a good third of those would be out of towners, would be people from Antioch, Murfreesboro, Hermitage coming in. And we're having to put a lot of our local people that are wanting to play in the gym outside and make them sit on a waiting list or on call. And that's pretty much what I'm looking for. But if you've got somebody coming in and they're a membership, they want to bring somebody with them, yeah, we'll entertain that. They'll pay their $2 and come in.
Okay.
As long as they're with a paying member and a
There we go.
member, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm good.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. But yes, sir, if they have family or guest or whatever in town with them.
I think y'all are asking about 10-5 here on this. When,
Well, I just wanted to
Yeah.
clarify.
okay.
So, 10-5 Thank you.
Y'all making me question whether we're.
I was getting confused here myself, Mayor.
This portion here, 10-3, is just to remove the fees from the city code. We'll get to the residency requirements.
Parks and Greenway Board recommend y'all.
Approved. But it,
Is what you will be doing on 10-5.
but the cost to rent a pavilion will no longer be captured in city code, so it'll be set by policy. All right, any other comments or discussion? All right, all in favor of 10-3, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Next item is a resolution, 10-4, resolution adopting the Mount Juliet Greenways Trail Sidewalk and Etiquette Rules. All right.
Second.
Motion and second. Commissioner Mullally, our sponsor.
All right, we have a new revised list based on the sample design that we had from the Parks Department. And so based on that and the additions from City Attorney, this is the new list. And I do have a question for Deputy Chief Mullins about the scooters. We had talked about, you know, we don't want those scooters. Well, several years ago, I think y'all had a discussion about you didn't want anybody opening a business here to rent those scooters like they have in Nashville, right? That was a discussion, although nothing was ever passed. So I guess that would be considered an electric scooter.
Yeah, the previous commissioner did bring that concern up, but I don't think the elected body ever took any position on that.
Okay. Is that what they're considered to be, an electric scooter?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so those are
The
allowed,
commercial electric scooter.
commercial, and those are allowed on the greenways?
Currently, without any ordinance, it would be. Yes.
They would?
Mhm. And currently, before any rules are adopted, it would be.
Okay, well, so my question is on the revised rules, do we want to allow those or don't we? And then if we don't, how can we word that?
I mean, I think the ordinance that you have in place that you're presenting covers electronic motorized vehicles, which would cover that.
So electronic would be considered motorized?
Mhm.
Okay, not just gas combustible.
When you talked about the combustible engine in the previous ordinance, that doesn't include your electric scooters.
Okay, so you're okay with the way it's written?
I'm okay with electric scooters if that's the will of if the elected body chooses to go that way.
Okay,
What about golf carts?
all right.
Vice Mayor.
What about golf carts?
Is that a question to me or the
To anyone who can answer it.
the way that it's currently listed, it would prohibit golf carts on the greenway in the ordinance.
Is it specifically call out carts, golf carts?
You know, I think the ordinance itself talks about just electric motorized vehicles.
Would be prohibited. So the
Prohibited,
scooters,
yes.
that's kind of where I'm going because I kind of was trying to follow this and I was confused. So the little electric scooters would not be allowed on the greenway.
Under the ordinance that the commissioner has, that's correct.
Okay, so the people with disabilities would not be allowed to.
I believe there's a caveat also in her ordinance that allows for any ADA required vehicles to be allowed.
Okay. Does a person have to be disabled to ride a
That's a Gino question. That's not.
Yeah, I
a
know.
question.
It says mobility devices for accessibility purposes.
Say that again?
Mobility devices for accessibility purposes. And that would be ADA type of items.
Okay.
Little red scooters. What else there would be?
I just want to make sure somebody was not allowed to go over there.
Motorized wheelchairs.
So,
Hover around.
so are hoverboards allowed then?
Prohibited. Smoking, littering, alcohol, drugs, soliciting, loitering. Anything with a combustible motor. All other activities not specifically permitted, and any permitted activity conducted in a way to violate any code or regulation.
Just want to make sure nothing changed. Okay.
So
everything's
based
like
on the
combustible.
ordinance that
So
Gino
none
just
of that was actually
read, it did
taken
not
out.
include electronic devices.
So
So
those are allowed.
the electronic scooters, based on the ordinance that Gino just read, would be allowed.
Would be allowed. electronic bikes, electric bikes,
Yep.
et cetera, unless you want to pass a separate statute.
Well, and I will tell you also, that you might want to look at the golf cart situation because that's actually looked at in TCA as something completely different than what you would anticipate.
Yes, sir.
You make sure you cannot be arrested for DUI driving a golf cart. I just found that out, by the way.
Maybe a lawnmower either.
Unless you're George, now George Jones is on a tractor, so
That's combustible though, unless you're doing electric, you know?
they call that the golf course rule, country club rule.
This is the first thing I thought of when you said that. Commissioner Hefner.
Yeah, I've got a question. I mean, we're trying to, there's a list of allowed. I see that getting changed every other year as new technology comes out, hoverboard crafts. I mean, we're going to be back here every other year amending this. I would like to see the allowed go away altogether. As far as whether it's electric or motor, why don't we reduce the maximum speed to 10 miles an hour? I think that will eliminate a lot of the concern with motorized vehicles. Again, these are all just my suggestions. Wouldn't that solve some of what we're trying to work through right now?
That's not going to apply to me when I'm running, is it?
I've seen you run.
If you run over 10 miles an hour. So
It's not going to happen.
Even a problem.
I mean, I'm open to discussing it. If I have to make a motion to amend, I will. I'd like to hear from the rest of the board on
I'm
that.
okay with it. You want to make a motion?
Okay. I'm going to move that we make a motion that we remove the allowed with the exception of pets on leash not exceeding 6 feet and reduce the maximum speed to 10 miles an hour.
Well, I thought your only motion was going to be to reduce the speed. So are you talking about take that first line out or just the word allowed out?
I don't think we need to list out what's allowed. I think the shorter list would be what's prevented or what is prohibited. Otherwise, we're going to be changing it every time something new comes out on the market. People are going to ask, well, this new gadget came out, is that allowed? So I just think it would be better if we just list the exceptions or the restrictions, not.
Okay, so if they go to the Greenway, how are they going to know if they have something? How are they going to know if it's allowed or
Well,
not?
if it's listed as something that is prohibited, everything else would be allowed.
But how would they know about, say, skateboards or skates if that's not listed anywhere?
Because it's not prohibited.
Would that be confusing?
No, ma'am, I
No.
understand.
I mean, to people,
I believe that would be generally understandable.
you would? Okay, so your motion is to reduce the 15 to 10 and remove the word allowed along with, and that whole first line.
Remove allowed, the second line, and the fourth line. Pets on leash not exceeding 6 feet should be listed.
Okay, I'm not following you. So the word allowed, you want to take that out or leave it?
I want to take out allowed.
The word allowed, okay.
I want to take out the second line.
Bicycles, trikes, and all that.
I want to leave in pets on leashes not to exceed 6 feet
Yes, okay.
and remove mobility devices for accessibility purposes.
Well, Gino's the one that put that in there.
I suggest if you want to get rid of allowed, then get rid of that entire paragraph and put down prohibited, pets on leashes exceeding 6 feet. And then we can add a line, no prohibition shall prevent mobility devices for accessibility purposes.
Okay,
You agreeable to that?
I'm agreeable.
I seconded, so Right.
Okay, say that, what's the wording on that again?
we took out all of allowed bicycle trikes, pets on leashes, mobility devices. And in prohibited, we put pets on leashes exceeding 6 feet. So if your leash is over 6 feet,
Right.
don't bring your puppy.
And then the last line, the mobility.
No prohibitions shall apply to mobility devices for accessibility purposes.
Okay. And all that goes under
All that goes under prohibited.
prohibited. Okay.
That makes sense.
And our city manager had something to add.
Yeah, it's just a point of clarification and for public awareness. I just want to make sure folks understood that even if this was implemented, I know that Commissioner Mullally is aware of that as well, that it was included in there that it wouldn't prohibit authorized vehicles like parks, police, and City Beautiful for maintenance. And they have the new sweeper and I think it's gas powered. So mowers, things of that nature, it wouldn't prohibit that. I just want to make that clear just in case somebody saw us and said, what are you doing on the Greenway? It's only we can maintain them with those pieces of equipment. I know it seems like an automatic known, but I just want to make sure I cleared it.
Make sure we capture that in the record. Does our Public Works Director have something to add? I see you approach the podium.
I did just want to note, for all of our greenways, this includes town center, trail, anything that we have, any development, there is geometric design criteria. It sounds weird to say. We actually have a design speed for our greenways. It's 18 miles an hour. So
I'll be
that gives
safe
you an
running.
idea of yeah, so 18 miles an hour. So we could go Hickory Hills on it and post that at 18. But again, that's just what's designed. Commission, feel free to set it as you wish, but that gives you an idea of what the design is based off of.
I'm fine leaving it at 15 miles an hour.
Yeah.
It's consistent with the Greenway off of out in so.
Yeah, I seconded. So if you want to leave it at 15, we're good.
So, okay, so now we're leaving it
We're gonna leave
at
it.
15?
When you take federal money, you follow federal rules. When you take state money, you follow state rules.
So the mayor could run.
The mayor can't even fall 15 miles an hour.
Sheila, do you want me to retype this and email it?
I think I've got it.
Okay.
I've got to remove the allowed section and to change under prohibited to state pets on leashes exceeding 6 feet and no prohibition shall apply to mobility devices for accessibility purposes. That's all right.
Good with that?
I'm good with that.
All right. Any other discussion or comments on this?
God, I hope not.
All in favor signify by, or excuse me, on the amendment, all in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye.
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 All right. Any discussion on the resolution as amended? All right, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right. That passes. The next item is a resolution of the City of Mount Juliet to establish a Mount Juliet Community Center entry plan for the safety of the residents. And Commissioner Trevitt, you are the sponsor.
Yes, sir. So the purpose of this right here is basically, again, for the parks to help just modify some of the rules. There's not really much to it. I know we've kind of already talked about it a little bit on the, the 10.3. So there's nothing I just need to add to it. So I'll make a motion for that.
To move on this?
Yep.
Got a second? Commissioner Mullally?
Okay, so to confirm the fees, it's a $20 membership fee. And each time you go, you pay $2 for a member, and you have to be Wilson County residents. Now, the email from John, because there was talk about an alternative membership. Are y'all still going with that?
Purchase for the family would be $100 with the $20 included. and that would cover your immediate family,
Okay. No matter how many's in the family.
no matter how many's in the family.
All right. And you can go as many times as you want.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Now, the observers, anyone that wants to come, say, sit and watch,
If you come sit and watch a league play or something, there's no fee.
no
If there's
fee.
basketball games going on or programs, no, there's no fee for that. It's only for people who trying to use the gym want to play basketball.
Okay.
And this is an annual membership running from January 1st to December 31st?
That is correct.
All right.
I just have a question. So I thought it was discussed that it would be if it was in the, let's say if the individual signed up in July 1st, would it
It's
be
pro- yeah,
prorated?
it's prorated.
Okay, just
Throughout
wanted
the
to
year
make
on
sure.
quarters, $5 per quarter.
Okay,
Like if somebody signed up now, it costs them $10.
perfect. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Just want to confirm.
And another thing we spoke of, Bill, I think we look back and family memberships were 150 back in the day. So they're 100 now and that covers the family. We were talking about $50 per add-on, but just $100 for family.
Okay, thank you for the correction.
Yeah.
Mayor.
Vice Mayor.
Mr. Marchetti actually has a suggestion that I think we probably need to look at. Mr. Marchetti,
In addition to Wilson County residents, you may want to make it eligible for employees of the city of Mount Juliet.
That's a good suggestion.
so is that,
And we already had that. We were,
Yeah, that was already in the
it was
plan.
already in there. It's just
Yeah.
not noted. But we're going to put all the employees' data in the data system and anybody immediate family of an employee is free.
so employees are automatically members?
Excluded.
Yeah, they're members.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
Would you say included or excluded?
Well, they'd be included, they'd be excluded from the charge,
Okay.
or the fee, I guess. All depends on how you want to word that
Okay.
one. Yes,
I think it run faster than 15 miles an hour.
yeah. Yeah. You think around 16 miles an hour, they're already
16.
grandfathered in?
Right.
Okay. I think. that's
So
it.
what happened to the original membership fee? Were y'all still charging it or did it just go away or what?
No, we still charge it.
Like the 150?
Yeah, we're
Okay,
right
so
now
you're
charging. That's
basically
what the
just
10-3
reducing
was
the
for,
price.
was
I got you.
flexibility to change those fees.
Yeah.
Because we don't offer quite what we did 4 or 5 years ago.
A Wilson County resident.
Okay.
Doesn't say anything about employees.
No. Well, we had gone over that, Gino, which is.
Hold on, just,
Oh,
go
I'm
ahead.
sorry. My apologies.
You got it.
Okay, so for the codes of conduct, it's stated right in there for line 1 must be a Wilson County resident. Do you see any issues with that?
That's what I'm saying. You're limiting membership to Wilson County residents. So if an employee lives in Davidson County, they're not eligible for membership. That's all I'm saying. If you want
Yeah,
to.
we'll change the verbiage on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I see your point, though. Thank you.
It's duly noted.
But if we're adopting this by resolution, then who would be changing the verbiage?
Be here. You'll admit it.
Okay,
So that
so
would
we
need to be
make,
done tonight.
okay, so if I make the amendment to add all city employees will be, I guess, how would that be modified? I want to get the proper term coming from the attorney.
You must be a Wilson County resident or an
Or-
employee of the city of Mount Juliet to qualify for membership.
Okay. Well, the family is not, well,
The families are immediately, once you have a membership, the immediate family's already part.
so that's the way that we're wording this.
Yes,
It's specific to the families
Mhm.
would be the membership. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So we'll make the amendment to adopt all Wilson County
Employees and their families.
residents, including city employees. Man, I'll tell you, that's going to be, sorry for the confusion over there.
She just typed it everybody, verbatim right there.
I like it.
So that's your motion?
So that's my motion.
I'll second.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor?
No, sir. No comment.
Oh, sorry, thought you wanted to speak
No, I
on
was
it.
pointing at you because I noticed you were.
All right.
Okay, so we got to vote for the,
Is there any discussion on this amendment? All right. All in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye.
aye.
Any opposed? All right, the amendment carries. Any other comments on the resolution as amended? All right, all in favor of the resolution as amended once signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, that
Thank you.
passes. Next item is board appointments, the cable TV appointment. These appointments are made by myself and approved by the Board of Commissioners. I'll read the names. Mr. John Cody, Mr. Jeremy Hayes, and Mr. Jackson Gallagher. I'd submit those for submission. Vice Mayor?
There is a question regarding the eligibility of one of those people, and I don't want to really have that discussion up here. And I'm not sure how to address it.
Do you just make a motion to defer?
I would, please, if you don't mind.
I'll second that. Does anybody, any objections?
I didn't hardly hear what he said. What was the reason for the flag?
The Vice Mayor said there's a question about eligibility for one of the members, and out of respect to the member, just didn't want to discuss it publicly, I guess.
Correct.
Am I paraphrasing it?
Well, not that I don't want to discuss, I want to determine the eligibility of that person, and I'd rather not have that person, the questions talked about in the public, because they may not have any bearing, and it could be somewhat embarrassing.
Could I ask what one would do on this committee or
I'm sorry, what?
appointment? Could I ask what one would be doing, like what their duty would be?
I believe the code, they make suggestions on the PEG channel, which is the public education channel that we run here. They make suggestions on the programming of that, and other duties as appointed, I believe, is the language that's in the code.
Okay.
All right. We have a motion and a second for deferral for one meeting. All in favor of deferral signify by saying aye.
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 All right. That'll be reconsidered at our next meeting. Our last item is an ordinance to rezone property known as the Powell McCluskey property at map 53, parcel 130.02 and 130.03 from single family residential RS40 to commercial retail center, the CRC, and single family residential RS15. I'll make a motion for this item. All right, it's motion and a second. It's on the table for discussion. Yes, sir.
I'd like to defer this for 30 days.
I'll second that. Any discussion on the advisement of deferral? All in favor of deferral for 30 days signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right. This item will be heard again in 30 days from now. And that passes, the deferral passes unanimously. And with that, we have reached the conclusion of our agenda. So without objection, we will stand adjourned.